안녕하세요. 여러분의 한국어 선생님 고빌리입니다. Welcome to the fifth part in my series where I analyze the Korean speaking of MONSTA X. Now, if you're here for the first time, I'm a Korean teacher. I've been learning Korean for over 20 years and teaching Korean on YouTube for over 13 years. And so far, I've made analysis videos for Shonu, Minhyuk, Kihyun, and Hyungwon. So today, I'll be sharing my analysis of joo-heon, or joo-honey, as you probably know him. And my analysis today will include everything that I noticed about him over the past 4 weeks since I started researching the group, including a lot of information that you're missing out on if you don't speak Korean. This will be how he sounds overall in Korean, his voice tone, any unique expressions he uses, as well as how he uses dialect. Just everything that stands out to me as a Korean teacher. But before we begin, I really need to say thanks to the sponsor of this video series, my incredible and amazing Patreon supporters, as well as my YouTube channel members. You are the ones keeping the lights on here and allowing me to keep making new videos without filling them up with advertisements. If you're watching right now, but you're not one of my Patreon members, please consider joining my Patreon page. It helps me a lot to keep my videos free and to make more and better Korean learning content, as well as videos like this one. So check out my Patreon page in the video description below. Now, let's get started with today's analysis. So I'll be looking at joo-heon, or joo-honey, whose full name is Lee-joo-heon.
네, 여러분. 반갑습니다. 주원입니다.
Spoiler alert, joo-heon is my favorite member in MONSTA X, and I'll tell you why soon. joo-heon was born in October of 1994 in Seoul, where he grew up. Somehow, though, he's able to speak dialect, which I'll talk about a bit later in this video. So in MONSTA X, his role is main rapper, and he's also heavily involved in producing their songs, along with Hyungwon and I-am. Although recently, joo-heon stands out to me the most as a producer because there are just so many examples of him doing it, and I have just a couple of clips here.
어렵다 어렵네. 빠밤 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 빵 이렇게 쳐주는 느낌. 오케이, 다 톤 너무 좋고요. 네. 너무 지금 damn 두어라 조. 근데 damn 밀어주고 그 다음에 마지막 원체는 one 이렇게 밀어주고. 두어라 one. 지금 그.
Before I look at his speech, let's talk about my first impressions. And just like before, I'm only going to show a few clips from my research. So here are the first few clips that I want to share with you. My first impression of him is...
여러분, 오늘 저랑 하나가 돼서 미친 듯이 뛰어봅시다. Let's go!
He's amazing at making other people happy and entertained, no matter what's going on, even if they're just doing a live stream, like in this next clip here. And a lot of times he's making dad jokes, like in this clip where he's using the word 돼지 from the verb 되다 and the ending 지. So basically just like, that's fine, right? 돼지. And joo-heon turns that into the word 돼지, which means pig. So he suggests that they all go eat pork after they're done filming.
다 나가잖아.
돼지. 돼지. 메뉴까지 정하고 가자.
돼지라고 했으니까 돼지 먹자.
I'm pretty sure though his jokes and his humor aren't going to translate well into English, especially those kind of dad jokes. Or here in this clip where everyone is playing a game where they have to hug each other, and joo-heon is the one that gets left out. So he pulls out what looks like a Nintendo DS and pretends that he doesn't even care. So he seems to always be having a good time and doesn't take himself too seriously. And I think that's the reason why he's also the best member at doing Ae-gyo. I mean, all of them can do Ae-gyo, which is just saying or doing something on purpose in order to look cute, such as acting or speaking like a baby. But unlike the other members, joo-heon seems to do Ae-gyo like professionally.
얘는 찐이야, 형. 진짜 찐으로 귀엽다.
우와, 진짜.
Again, he's always just having a good time with whatever's going on. And the other members all seem to really like him too. It's not just me. And whenever they're together, it's like he transfers some of his energy into whoever he's with. Like here's Gi-heon and Min-hyuk teasing him by translating everything into very poor English, and they keep doing it, but they know joo-heon will play along with them.
정말 공부는 중요하다라고 저는 생각을 했어요.
했어요.
네.
워드?
그 뒤에 벗이 있습니다. 사실 저는 공부를 잘하는 학생이 아니었어요.
네, 맞아요. 못했어요. You're not a good student.
그러니까 사실 네, 그렇죠. 어렸을 때
children
공부가 저는 사실 좀 싫었어요.
네, 공부해.
그냥 음악이 너무 좋았거든요.
Music like.
근데 지금 와서
right
생각해 보면
now, thinking about you.
이제 그만해도 될 것 같아요.
So I just wanted to show those examples of his character because I think it helps paint a better picture of who we're looking at when we get into his Korean. So let's get into his Korean, starting with the thing that I noticed first about him, and that's his intonation. Yeah, I wasn't expecting joo-heon to have the nicest, smoothest, and clearest intonation in the entire group. So I'll play a clip and I want you to only focus here on how his intonation sounds. So how does his voice tone go up and down while he's speaking?
진짜 음악 방송에서 몬베베들을 만난 거 진짜 오랜만이에요. 비가 갑자기 아까 막 엄청 쏟아지길래.
Now, at first when I heard him doing this intonation, I assumed it was just because he's being filmed. You know, like everyone will speak differently on TV than they will in a live stream. But nope, this is just his regular sort of intonation. And here, I have more clips though, but here's another clip from one of his live streams. And again, I just want you to focus on his intonation.
그 라이츠에서 희망의 베이지라고 했잖아요. 그래서 그때 그 활동을 하면서 진짜 그 희망적인 것들을 몬베베들이랑 되게 많이 나눈 것 같고 좋은 긍정적인 그 힘들을 많이 좀 보여줬다고 생각을 하는데 그러고 나서 이제 군대를 갔죠. 네, 군대 갔다 나와서 또 열심히 제 이런 희망적인 것들이나 몬베베를 만나서 좋은 에너지를 또 얻고 잘 가고 있습니다.
Okay, so Billy's saying joo-heon has smooth intonation when he speaks, but now let's actually look at this intonation so you can see what I mean. I have another clip here, and I'm going to show his intonation over the screen.
밥 먹고 여기 와서 커피 마시고 나름 여유를 가졌죠. 밥 먹고 여기 와서 커피 마시고 나름 여유를 가졌죠.
This is him speaking completely normally when he's out and about, and you can hear when he's connecting part of a sentence to another part of a sentence, his intonation will go up a bit. So every time that someone would normally take a break when speaking, but they're not yet finished, it's common for intonation to slightly rise there. And this is why you'll often use a raised intonation at the end of a sentence connector, like 는데 or 지만. And here in this video where he says 밥 먹고, notice the cool part goes up. And then at the end of the sentence where it's not a question, the intonation will drop back down. So that's very standard intonation. And let's look at the one more example.
바지가 두 개가 붙어 있어요. 뭐가 진짜 다리일까요? 맞춰보세요. 전 네 개의 다리를 갖고 있습니다. 바지가 두 개가 붙어 있어요. 뭐가 진짜 다리일까요? 맞춰보세요. 전 네 개의 다리를 갖고 있습니다.
In the last clip, since he broke it up into segments, which ended with raised intonation, it was a bit harder to hear this smooth pronunciation, but here you can see it more easily with longer sentences. And it's not just that his intonation is smooth, it's almost like there's there's intonation, but it's like there's nothing exaggerated in these clips. His tone raises at the beginning of each section of a sentence, and then the rest of it will just go slowly back down to the end. And this is very pleasing to listen to. And if you're a Korean learner, not having to worry about someone's intonation means that you can focus a lot more on what they're actually saying. So because of his standard intonation, I guess, I think that joo-heon is probably one of the best members you could use for listening practice. And it's the same whether he's speaking at a normal volume or when he's talking a bit louder. And I have another clip of that.
이거 너무 어려워 이거. 피스가 뭐 이렇게 많아. 맨날 피스야.
Here too, even when he raises his voice, it doesn't go up sharply or down. His intonation will smoothly go up at the start and then smoothly back down at the end. It's pretty consistent. Another thing about his speaking that I think makes him a good choice for listening practice is that no matter if he's speaking loud or soft, he doesn't mumble. His voice is still clear. So as a result, no matter if I hear joo-heon right in front of the camera or when he's like 10 feet back and there's music playing, I can still understand him just fine. And I can't say this about the other members, but I definitely couldn't say this about someone if they mumbled or if their voice was really deep. And it's the same when he speaks quietly too. I have a clip here of him speaking very quietly from a stream, and he's not even wearing a microphone, and it's probably just the internal microphone on one of the staff's camera. So you can just barely hear him in the original clip, although I will increase the volume when I play it. But even at such a low volume, I think he's just as easy to understand. So here's that clip.
이렇게. 이 사진. 이 사진 보시면 제가 얼굴에 이렇게 죽은 깨 같은 것들을 좀 이렇게 해놨어요. 네.
And there were so many examples that I found of him speaking quietly like this because their live streams, they just use the camera internal microphone. But here is just one more that I found, and this one, he's even quieter. So give it a listen.
그래도 이렇게 가기 전에 몬베베들한테도 좋은 선물을 할 수 있어서 너무 고맙고 감사하고 엠카해.
Despite this being very quiet, his pronunciation is clear. His intonation smooth. His voice tone, again, isn't really deep. I can still understand him just fine without having to read the Korean subtitles. Now, do you understand why me, a Korean teacher, picked joo-heon as my favorite member? And I want to show just one more clip since now we've heard him speaking quiet and loud. And in this clip, he's actually eating while talking. So see if you can still hear what he's saying.
그 친구가 있었기 때문에 저희 또 음악적으로 발전이 이만큼 있지 않았나 싶고요. 참 제가 저기 위에서 어릴 때 음악 편집을 하던 그 모습이 상상이 돼서 참 기분이 이상하게.
Even with a mouth half full of ice cream, you might not need Korean subtitles to understand what he's saying. And I really appreciate him for having such clear speech no matter what he's doing, since it makes my job much easier. Okay, one last example of his wonderful intonation, and I promise this is the last one.
선생님 상추가 나는 치아 미백에 좋다는 얘기를 한 번도 들어본 적이 없어.
나도.
Wait a second, that wasn't smooth intonation. Billy, what's going on? Yeah, that sounds like dialect. His intonation goes up and down real fast. His pronunciation of some of the vowels is a bit lax, and he sounds pretty much like any older person from the Gyeongsang province, which includes cities like Busan or Daegu, which is known for having more of like a rugged type of intonation. And the first time I heard joo-heon use dialect, I was confused because it says right on his profile that he was born and raised in Seoul. And I couldn't find anything about him ever traveling to Gyeongsang province or going to school there or being raised by his grandparents. So it really stumped me how he could possibly speak in this dialect, and he's good at it.
나한테 자꾸 뭐라 하지 마라.
뭐 좋은 거 뭐 이런 거 알려줘.
정신이 맑아져. 정신이 맑아지고. 신체는 더 맑아지고.
그렇지.
Even if you don't know any dialect, you can tell because suddenly his intonation will become rapid. Like here in this clip where he's speaking in dialect to I am. So first I'm going to show the clip and then we're going to look at his intonation and some of the dialect expressions that he uses.
네 몸은
이거 고기.
몸 생각해가지고 또 고기만 먹나? 나도 이거 패티만 먹어야 되나?
빵만 먹어.
빵만 먹으면 너무 살찌잖아. 야, 니처럼 좋아지려면 이거 패티만 먹어야 되는 거 아이가? 한입 먹을래?
형 스테이크 먹었다.
아, 맞다, 맛있는 거 먹네. 그래, 고기 형 하나 먹어도 되나?
그럼 두 개 먹어.
그래, 고기 부족하니까 이거 꽂아서 먹어도 되나?
그럼.
Okay, and let's look at the last two sentences again from this clip.
그래, 고기 형 하나 먹어도 되나?
그럼 두 개 먹어.
그래, 고기 부족하니까 이거 꽂아서 먹어도 되나?
그럼.
그래, 고기 형 하나 먹어도 되나?
그럼 두 개 먹어.
그래, 고기 부족하니까 이거 꽂아서 먹어도 되나?
그럼.
So instead of simply going up and at the beginning and down back at the end, sometimes parts start at the bottom and then just like stay there for a syllable or two, and then they start up higher for more emphasis. And instead of slowly going down over a few words at the end of a sentence, each word gets like its own separate intonation. Or in simpler terms, his intonation is wobbly. So then what's actually going on here? Well, I can't make an entire lesson about dialect in this video, although if you search for Busan or Daegu on my channel, I have made several videos about these dialects in detail already. But one super common dialect ending you'll hear is the ending na. And he uses it here twice in the word 되나. Normally this would be just like 돼 or 돼요 in standard Korean, but Gyeongsang dialects tend to use the ending na, which in Seoul is used to soften a sentence, instead to make the sentence kind of like into a question. So na would be in a casual speech question. So this ending tends to get used more in dialect than in standard Korean.
네, 그럼 형 하나 먹어도 되나? 그럼 두개 먹어. 네, 고기 두개 하나 꽂아서 먹어도 되나? 그럼.
Another word that he's using here that gives away its dialect is the verb 먹다, which is the dialect version of 먹다, meaning to eat. However, although it's written as 먹다, it's often pronounced without the bottom consonant as just 무, which is why in this clip, if you listen carefully, it sounds more like he's saying 무어도 되나.
네, 그럼 형 하나 먹어도 되나? 네, 그럼 형 하나 먹어도 되나?
And also in the beginning of the clip, he says 한 입 물래 instead of 먹을래, meaning do you want a bite?
한 입 물래, 한 입 물래.
Another common verb ending you'll hear in Gyeongsang dialect is the ending 고, which is also used in standard Korean, but in standard Korean, it's simply used to show that a sentence isn't finished yet, like saying the word and, or and then, or and so. But in Gyeongsang dialect, they use this also commonly when asking questions. And I have a clip from Hyungwon actually when he was teaching Jeolla dialect, which is where he's from, and he asks ju-heon in this clip for his opinion on how to say the expression 어디야, meaning where are you or where is it? And you can hear ju-heon in the background say that actually in Gyeongsang dialect, they more often say 어디고 instead of 어디야. So here's the clip.
네 어디냐 한번 해주시죠.
어디야?
어디야?
어디고?
어디고?
보통 경상도는 어디야라고 안 하는 것 같아요. 고로 많이.
어디고?
So, how does ju-heon speak fluent Gyeongsang dialect if he never grew up there?
I am 마피아! I am 마피아! 왜안 가고! 미친놈! 어떻게 보이는 다 지금 내도 안 보이는 번호 던지고 있잖아.
I couldn't find any information about him talking about this, and I did, however, find lots of random websites claiming that he either was born in Daegu and moved to Seoul, or was born in Seoul and moved to Daegu. But none of these make sense because we know where he went to elementary school, junior high, and high school in Seoul. And more importantly, I couldn't find anywhere he talked about this. The only thing I did find is some times when the members joked about him being from Daegu, but I couldn't find any concrete information. But it's pretty insane how well he can speak dialect. So the only thing I could find from reading various blog posts in Korean is that his mother is from Gyeongsang province. So we have to assume that she must have spoken to him using strong dialect the entire time while he was growing up. And we can also assume that he spent lots of time talking with her all the way until he joined Starship Entertainment. Otherwise, he wouldn't speak this well. But I wasn't able to verify this for myself, again, because oftentimes blogs have wrong information. Until I remembered that I heard a certain other member happens to share the same birthday with Chuwon's mother. And I remember that I watched a live stream of that member making a phone call to Chuwon's mother to say happy birthday, and that member was Gi-hyun. And if we go back and listen to that phone call that he made to her, and if you pay attention to her intonation over the phone, I can absolutely hear that she speaks in dialect. So let's listen to that clip.
아이고 어머니. 네, 우리 주원이 어머님이십니다.
아, 네, 반갑습니다.
아, 어머니 감사해요.
평소에 모습이 아니라서 너무 웃지 마라.
에이, 어머니 평소에는 훨씬 더 경했으신데요.
아, 야. 그렇게 이야기 안 해도 된다.
Yeah, you can really hear her intonation as she goes back into her dialect at the end of the clip. Let's listen to that part one more time, actually.
아, 어머니 감사해요.
평소에 모습이 아니라서 너무 웃지 마라.
에이, 어머니 평소에는 훨씬 더 경했으신데요.
아, 야. 그렇게 이야기 안 해도 된다.
So yeah, we can safely say that Joo-heon learned his dialect from his mom, at least, probably. So that explains why he's able to speak it so well despite not having lived there. And I have just one more clip of him back in 2016 where they asked him to repeat something that he had just said using dialect. And in this clip, you can hear his intonation and that same ending na again here as well.
나 오늘 쌩얼인데 괜찮아?
쌩얼 맞나? 아닌 것 같은데. 근데 왜 이렇게 이쁘냐?
You can also hear the verb ending no when he says 이쁘노. And this ending no has the same meaning as the ending na in this dialect. They're both verb endings that are used for asking questions, except the ending no is only used in questions that involve asking who, what, where, when, and why, while the ending na is used for asking general questions when you just want more information about something. And he starts this sentence with the dialect word wa, which is in standard Korean we, meaning why. So basically he's just asking, why are you so pretty, using dialect.
왜 이렇게 이쁘냐? 왜 이렇게 이쁘냐?
Okay, so that's enough about his dialect. Next, let's talk about his filler words. Now, a filler word is just any word that's used to fill space. So words like 이제, 좀, and a dozen more, they all have meaning, but this is when they're just used not for their meaning, but to fill up space. And joo-heon uses filler words regularly, just like all 6 members, and none of them excessively. But I did find one filler word that he seems to prefer to use. So first see if you can find it on your own in this clip.
뭐 희망, 저 베이지, 노랑 뭐 이렇게 정하겠습니다. 현재는. 애교 3종 세트랑 애창곡 한 소절을 불러야 되는데 애교 3종 세트는 뭐 사실 뭐 꾹꾹까까, 듀아듀아, 뭐 필등 뭐 여러 가지가 있는데 그리고 제가 아까 지금 여기 막 댓글에서 지금 막 쓰고 있는데 민혁이 형 관련해가지고 이제 제가 왜 고맙고 뭐 이렇게 얘기를 했던 게 뭐 그런 거 아닙니다.
It's not super obvious because when he uses this filler word, he doesn't pronounce it clearly like the rest of his words, but he really just uses it quick and just to fill a little bit of space. Now, if you didn't find it already, the word that he's using is 뭐, meaning what. However, when 뭐 is used as a filler word, you can think of it as meaning like, and you can use it when you're just not sure like how to describe something or you're not sure what to say. And that's pretty much it for his filler words. I didn't find him overusing any though, and he's not the sort of speaker who wastes a lot of words, which is just one more reason why I think he's great for listening practice and why he's my favorite member. Okay, so that's enough about Joo-heon's speech. Let's talk for a moment about his handwriting. And I have a letter here that he wrote to mon-bebe. Now this looks cool. It's not neat, like it's not neat at all. And at first glance, it looks super messy, but it's definitely a style. And just like his speaking, his writing is also consistent. So look at the first sentence where he writes, 안녕하세요, 사랑하는 우리 mon-bebe. Every letter in this he writes nearly the exact same way every time he writes it. Like, look at bebe. Both of the piup letters, that's the B letter, are almost like stamp copies of each other. And you'll see it for every instance of that. And even parts that look a bit messy, like the letter nian, which is the N letter in the word like 사랑하는. You can see the 는 part. It'll show up again at the end of the third sentence, also in the word 만났다는. And you can also see it's the exact same nian here. In fact, that letter nian makes it easy to spot his writing because it's everywhere once you know to look for it. And this letter here is full of this sort of thing. And it just shows me that he probably does a ton of writing. So maybe writing lyrics in his free time. He likely also writes rather quickly, since I can see that the strokes at the end of each letter flow into the next letter. And you can really see that in the sentence that starts with 아는 시간이라. So every letter in both syllables in the word 아는 are flowing together in like one stroke. And it would not look like this at all if he were writing slowly, because the strokes that connect the letters look very thin. So you can tell that it was at the end of a stroke when he was writing it. So he's a fast writer, but he's good at writing, and he writes consistently. However, although this is a style, and I said he writes consistently, because he writes quickly and connects his letters together kind of like cursive, it could be a bit difficult to read unless you have a really good grasp of the alphabet. Okay, so now let's look at just one more letter, which is a very short letter that he wrote to Cheonu. This letter starts with 사랑하는 우리 형, meaning my dear older brother. And he wrote this with a much thicker marker this time, but look how he wrote the letter nian again, like in the word 사랑하는. As soon as you see that letter, you can easily know that it's Joo-hon's writing. And again, he writes this pretty quickly. In fact, for this letter, there's a video of him writing it, so we can check how fast he writes.
동생이 어느 순간 쓱 사라졌는데.
So yeah, he's a fast, consistent writer. Nice job! Okay, now I could keep going on, but we still have one more member left, so that's enough for this episode.
오늘 이렇게
If you liked this video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe to my channel for more content like this, as well as free Korean lessons. Thank you again to my Patreon supporters and channel members. And there's a link you can visit to help support my channel in the video description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next episode where we'll analyze I am. 그럼 다음에 또 봐.